All right, we're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to M&M Exhibition Poultry's Talking Chickens. As always, sponsored by Rozier Poultry Supplies in Illinois. You need anything, call Caitlin, and she'll get it right out to you. They have a great website, and it's on the page that you're looking at right now. Special guest today is Troy Laroche. Uh, I don't know when we met, but I know we were a hell of a lot younger, and yeah, it's been a long time since we met.
Back in,
Those of
back
you
in
that don't
best,
know Troy,
best, back in best of variety Rolling Rock days, I think. So.
Oh yeah, that
oh,
was it.
well,
But
yeah,
I
we,
was
we
gonna
did have a lot
say,
of that.
I was gonna say early 90s.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't know Troy, well, then you must be new to the chicken hobby. Troy's an ABA, APA Canadian judge. Done everything and been everywhere and been in every organization and we got him on here today to talk a variety of things. Troy's a master breeder of modern game bantams, uh, large white leghorns. Had them for years. Did your dad have leghorns,
No,
Troy?
my granddad did, Grant Forgrave.
Granddad.
That's my mom's dad. I got him in the hobby. He was a cattleman all his life, and he got hurt got kicked by a Simmental, a Limousin female, getting ready for a show and sale, and he basically couldn't work after that. So he started taking me as a young guy to different guys' places to buy birds, and he was somewhat interested in the hobby. And I just remember being at this one guy's place, and I was buying some BB Old English, and next thing I know, he's over making a deal with this guy buying some black Old English, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, those aren't for you; they're for me." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So pretty soon, he was probably as much into it as I was, and he had many different varieties and breeds of chickens, and was basically a string man in his area. And he made a trip out western Canada to visit my aunt and uncle out there, and came across a guy out there. This is western Canada. Came across a guy out there with some really good white leghorns, and that's where he started. And he had them for probably 25, 30 years. And when his health got bad, I decided to take over the flock. So the last 10 years that he had them, I was helping him kind of set up the breeding pens and everything. So I take zero credit for the success I had with them. It was mainly him that, brought them to that point. When I took them over, I really didn't have a hard job to keep them. It was, I had a little bit of knowledge of how we set them up. We prided ourselves on beautiful heads on both females and males, small, fine male heads, and the females, the good flopped over comb. And he did very well with them when he had them, and I did very well with them when I had them. As times changed, got back into the bantam more than anything, and that's where I started working with moderns more than anything. So, well, and I had moderns for years prior to that as well. So, yeah.
Right. So tell us, what are you raising, and how do you see the trends that are going and the things that you raise, and you're like Matt and I, you get to a ton of shows a year, uh, probably as many as you want to do, and just what you see out there, and how are we getting better in a lot of things, and there's just the kind of overall how you're feeling.
Sure. Well, moderns, I currently have 10 varieties. That's probably about 8 too many. But it's
Been there.
yeah, when you like them all, and I like helping people. One of my main competitors over the last 25 years, more than that, 30 years, somebody that I got birds from when I was a kid. When he was towards the end of his poultry career, he kind of entrusted me with some lemon blues and silver blues, and that's why they're still here. Just carrying on. And those lemon blues and silver blues trace back to Glenn Cryer out of Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yep.
many, many, many years ago. So and I helped Don do it. It was Don Wilson was the guy's name. Super guy. He had big Old English and modern game bantams and a few Old English bantams as well. And he was a true breeder of the time. And I knew him forever since I was a little kid, like before I even lived in the area. And he always treated me really well. And, we had a really good friendship right to the very end. And it was always funny whenever we met up to shows. It was never Troy had champion and he had reserve, or he had champion and I had reserve. It was winner take all. He always either had the champions or I had them, and in the moderns I'm talking. And it was very interesting. Later in life, he got into a situation where he couldn't get any fertility out of his birds, and he came to me and wanted to get a couple of males. And I said, Don, come on up. He only lived 10 miles away. So he came up and went through the flock, and he says, what can I have? I said, I'm done breeding for the years. Take what you want. He goes, well, what am I going to owe you? And I said, nothing. I said, you're going to bring them back when you're done. Well, why would you do that? And I said, because you help me, I'm helping you. And I said, you don't understand. To me, you coming to ask me means more to me than any money you could ever give me. It's like an honor to help you. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that went a long way, and we were good friends. And I have a Getz picture that I was looking at when I was 8 and 9 years old that was hung in his trophy room. And about a year and a half before he passed, I was at his place bringing him some birds, and he says, come on in the house, I've got something for you. And he gave me this color Getz.
Yep.
And you'll have to pry that one out of my hands when I'm dead and cold, because
that's the last one coming off the wall, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I got a couple of those.
Yeah.
The Getz ones are kind of neat because I don't know that they're probably as valuable as some of the Shillings and Sewells, but I think that the fact that the breeders that own those, because they usually were pictures of their own birds and they had Roy paint them for them. So I have a Seabright one that I got from Johnny Batson years ago that hung in Emily's bedroom when she was little. Yeah. And then I was able to buy 2 of them at the ABA auction that were Claire Hicks. So just the fact that who had them, I think, is more important than the value of the picture. And Claire was a good friend back in the old days. So she was a big white Polish, and coaching breeder. So
the story on these pictures. So there was also another one there that I would have loved to have, but it ended up going to a very dear friend of mine who I kept birds with for years, and Bill Clark. And the story on those pictures, those Getzes, was if you showed at the Harrisburg, the big show in Pennsylvania.
Probably York.
He used
to paint at York. Yeah.
If you won the one year, you came back, they'd give you a picture of your bird that you won on the year before. So that's what I have, and Bill has the other one, which is.
And that is where almost all of those, I think, come from originally. Was as awards at York.
Right, and I also have a bunch of the pieces of basically wood that he painted as well. I have like Old English and battle, the old cocker style that they have come off. I've got some of them that are just Old English, large fowl, because Donnie used to show those. And there's a couple of moderns as well, which are very cool. But anyway, back to the birds. I mean, I came up through the moderns at a time when there was a lot of, let's just call them master breeders, long before the points and the starred wins and everything. These were guys that were truly master breeders. I mean, and they weren't afraid to help you out and give you birds or sell you birds. And one of them in particular, which was a major influence in me keeping them, was Weldon Idle out of North Carolina.
Oh yeah, he had great birds. Man, he had beautiful birds.
You look back and see, like where I used to see him every year was at Columbus, Ohio. And, you look back and see how many times that guy won that show with BB Reds in particular, Birchins as well. And he had like one of the best lines of silver ducklings that I've ever seen. I mean, we see them now, and there's a couple guys, Vic Sturdman and Tyler Murray, are both working to try to bring them back. And I'm glad of that. Like I say, I have 10 varieties, so I'm not really looking to take on another project. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see that the guys are working with them. So, but, Weldon was a good guy to me. And I mean, he was the type of guy that he would remember what he gave you too. One year at Columbus, he gave me four females, BB Red females. And, I raised quite a few out of them, and they out of stuff that I'd got from him before. And they were okay. And anyway, I show up there this next fall, and he goes, "Do you still have those 4 females I gave you like 2 years ago?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come here, I got something for you." So we go to the back of the truck, and he pulls out this cockerel, and I'm looking at this thing, and he must have saw my face, and I just was like, "Oh wow, thank you." But it was literally a turkey on stilts. I mean, this thing was massive. And he goes, and I just looking at it, and he goes, "I know." And I'm like, "You know what?" And he goes, "He's big." He said, "But put him on those 4 females." Okay. So next year I come back. I didn't beat him, but I had third cockerel after his first and second. He knew what he was doing. That's what I'm trying to say. And he remembered those birds, you know. And Weldon, right to the very end, I was fortunate enough to go visit Weldon. You know, we used to keep in touch by phone all the time. This is long before internet and all that. We used to, you know, talk to each other several times a year. And I had the fortune of going down. That was actually when I first became a director. They had a meet down there in Hickory at the old fairgrounds there, where they used to have the jamboree.
Yeah.
No, and I told him I was coming, and he told me where to fly in and everything. And he must have forgot. He wasn't showing at that show. Anyway, I just showed up unbeknownst, and here I pull in the yard, and I get out of the car, a rental car, and he's walking across the parking lot with 2 5-gallon buckets of corn. Well, he saw who it was, and he dropped both of them. And he goes, "What in the world are you doing here?" I said, "I come to visit you." And he's like, "Well," he says, "hold on." So he goes into the house, and he starts yelling at his wife, "Peggy, there's a boy here from Canada. Get him some lunch." So we went out and looked at birds for, you know, a couple hours and everything. And, you know, it was a absolute amazing afternoon. I got to see the famous Castleberry carving of a red pile modern that sat on the end of his piano. And I mean, amongst our community of modern breeders, they still talk about it today. I keep a picture of it on my phone from an old picture. You know, it was a work of art, absolutely amazing, and it still exists. When I understand it, Weldon's grandson has it. So, but it's funny. I was having dinner. I think you guys were there too at Congress last year, and Kyle came and joined us there. And I showed him a picture of that, and he goes, "Well, why don't they look like that in real life?" I mean, it was an amazing work of art. So, but and then mentioning the Castleberries, they were dear people in the modern, you know, world. Cliff Troxel, Tom Anderson, the Solis, Jeff Sumner, the Canes. They were always, you know, in competition there with us as well. Later years, you know, I met up with the Walkers and Bob Choate. You know, Vic was always there, Vic Sterneman. Later years, Cheryl Barnaba. I mean, all these people are champions in their own right. I mean, and then we've got the Thompsons out of Alabama that, man, just prince of the earth kind of people. I mean, they do anything for you, and just good breeders on top of that, you know, and lay down. And like I think I mentioned in the last Modern newsletter, I'm glad to know them, and I'm envious of their success in the breeding pen, but I'm glad I'm not paying their feed bills. But, you know,
Mike and I have been there, and it's just amazing because I think if you started feeding at one end, by the time you got done, you'd have to start over again. That's how many birds. And I never have seen, there's not a bad bird in that building. So, you know, some of us, we always have those few extras we keep around just in case. There's none of them there. Everything there has a purpose and is show ready. And I think at that time, Mike, how many red piles were there? There was 8 or 9, and they were gorgeous. I mean,
and he raised
whatever color they have, they do well with.
Yeah, they raised 50. I mean, they raised 1,500 this year. Adam told me. Like birds all together. I mean, that's just okay. I mean, I can't fathom it.
Yeah,
I've seen it, but I can't fathom it. I have no clue.
Yep.
So,
you know, and then you know, not to leave him out, Tyler Murray and I, we've exchanged birds for years, and he's you know, we were all at his wedding there a week or so ago, and you know, super guy, and you know, cares about the breed. You know, I'm glad that he's involved. So, we'll talk about the moderns for a minute. I mean, a lot of people, probably one of the more misunderstood breeds. A lot of judges struggle judging them. You know, all they can see is tallness. I had the fortune of having a couple of guys that explained it to me, Weldon being one of them. Another one, which you guys knew him very well too, is Fred Kentner. You know, Fred was a rough and tumble kind of guy, liked to drink, liked to carry on, but he was a good-hearted person that once you saw past the heavy facade, he was just one of those guys, if you listen to him, you could learn from him. And one of the things, you know, I heard you guys talking on one of the other podcasts about, you know, the famous briefcase of feathers and all the rest of it. If you're gonna fake, do a good job, because guys like me that learn from him are gonna catch you. Because
exactly.
You know,
then we get pissed. It pisses me off that if you're gonna do this, don't think I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, do it really, really good. Make me go, damn, that could be. I mean, I know that probably sounds bad, but it's true. If you're going to do it correctly.
And I mean, like, you know, a Sharpie in the parking lot, sorry.
No, that don't work.
That don't work, you know.
Nor does the inkwell in the show aisle.
Exactly.
I remember that one. That's been 25 years ago, if not.
And you know, on the same token, so, you know, another name I'll drop here was Gord Riddler. He was one of those guys.
Oh, God, yes.
Hard guy to learn from, but if he liked you, you learned. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about Gord because he knew him as well. And I used to go there. I needed like a hole in the head. I had a young family and, you know, working a job and whatnot. And I'd go to his place and clean out pens just to listen to him talk, you know. And he taught you more in just an afternoon of cleaning pens that hadn't been cleaned out in 10 years. You know, and he had a unique system, the way he ran things, and they didn't need to be cleaned out because he had peat moss and dirt and whatnot. But he was just a wealth of information, and I learned very, very a lot about him. And, you know, and I always talk to him about, you know, the things that some of the stuff that Fred taught me, and he goes, it's just as easy to correct them as it is to, you know, correct them and breed them correctly as it is to try to fix something that you probably shouldn't be fixing. Because, you know, it's no different than, you know, I hear people all the time, and especially about 10 years ago, there was a lot of talk about if we're going to be able to dub birds anymore. And I took that to heart back in the day, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm looking at some of the males and the moderns, you know, they look like moose antlers. I mean, we had side sprigs coming off them right now.
Oh yeah,
and we
huge cones.
We all let it go because, you know, we cut them off anyway. What's the matter? Then when there was that talk, and I'm thinking, wow, better look after this, you know. So, you know, I started paying attention, and it literally I corrected it in 2 years. I mean, just eliminate it, because you can fool yourself by cutting that off. It's still there. It's still in the lines of everything.
Show up in the female there once in a while too.
And it does. I find it. I look, and that's one of the things I'm looking at when I'm, you know, one of the minor things, but, you know, you got to know that it's there. So, and like I say, these people that I mentioned, you know, Weldon, Fred, and Gord, they all taught me the basics of what that bird, breaking down that bird. And I wrote an article for the Modern newsletter a few years back, probably sounds like a few years. I think it was probably closer to 20, but, you know, just the breaking down of the bird, you know, where does the length come from? You want that long snaky neck with the eye close to the top of the head. You know, the eye should be right over the ball of the foot. The length of the leg, you know, you want the leg to come from the body to that first joint rather than from the joint to the floor. People don't get that. And I'm like, you know, you can get a long-legged bird that's all shank. And
they look funny.
You want that. Yeah. They don't look in balance, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And then probably the thing, and it was funny, I was talking to Newt Long this spring at the Michigan show, and we went over his big birds after judging. And I said, you see, like, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for that half an orange slightly turned up. And he goes, I've never thought of it like that. I said, well, if you think of that and see that half moon or that half of an orange slightly tilted, I said, and it's balanced. I said, the tail's there, you know, that half moon, and the legs are right in the middle of the body. You've got a balanced bird. I said, and we went over some of his other ones, and he's like, this one doesn't have it. No, it doesn't. You know, if we think about what we're breeding, and let's face it, there's very few birds in the standard that don't need to be balanced with that leg in the middle of the body. If they don't, they're
That's
either
exactly.
they're either going to rear up or lean forward, one or the other, to get their balance. So, that's one of the things, especially in moderns, you got to be aware of it. You just have to be aware of it. And
I think with moderns, I come to them a little later in my career,
yeah.
But you have to be probably more observant with the birds than what you are with other breeds. I mean, you have to go out and watch them because they can look good for 2 minutes, but do they look good for the duration of, when they're going to be in? So they take a little more effort for people than
I agree.
Other breeds do. And I think that might be some of the, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Silkies passed the moderns as the number 2 breed, which always kind of amazed everybody that they were the number 2 breed. But when the reports come in and we tally that up, I mean, there's huge numbers of them shown all over, probably not as many in this area, but, all over the country.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, in this day and age when everybody wants something quick, fast, and easy, they're not quick, fast, and easy. So I think that might be some of the downfall to them.
And I think that's part of it. You talk. Let's talk about 2 things there. Watching them, yes, I watch my birds continually. When I cull, I'm watching for certain things, and I can start that process literally after they're about 4 days old. I mean, you see that crooked toe. If you see something that's, I'm not talking color. I'm just talking structure. If they've got that crook in their neck, or they're just, maybe that bill's not straight or whatever. All that little stuff, eliminate it, and everything else looks better. And when we're talking about looking at birds, yes, we have to, especially with moderns, you got to train them. I'm looking for birds that kind of self-train themselves to begin with.
Natural pose.
And I'm not a big Facebook fan of any sort, or any social media really. I'm more of an observer of anything. A couple of years ago, I did post a male up, and I had probably like 180 friggin' responses to it. And the best one that I can remember was Bob Choate going, "He stands without being posed." And that's literally what he was. I mean, he was an amazing male. And, I had people bugging me to buy him in Ohio that whole year, but he didn't. I said he didn't even place. And it was funny because my friend Brad, one of the guys that helps run OPV, he was over a couple of days before Ohio, and he goes, "That's quite a bird." I said, "Yeah, he won't place." He says, "Why wouldn't he?" I said, "There's nothing else that looks like him." And I only had the one. He just was an outstanding bird. But the breeders saw what he was. But and I, let's face it, not everybody's cut out to be a modern judge. I get that. So
no, I didn't start very well. I had to have those sidebars with Vic and Henry.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my thing. So there was 2 things I hated to judge when it first started: moderns and medium ducks, because medium ducks all look alike to me. I didn't care about them. I knew that I had to judge them. So those were 2 things that I went to work on, because I knew that when I got those classes, they're not going to be very happy. So Vic and Henry helped me greatly, because I was all I ever seen was Cliff Troxell's birds. Which, I'd not to talk bad about him, but they were great profile birds. But they were these tiny little things. When you turned them this way, they were only about this wide.
Yeah.
So Henry and them kind of got me to look more for a different body type than what I was looking for. And Louis Cunningham worked with me for days to get me over cayugas and buff ducks, and George over buff ducks. So you have to work on those things that you're not real fond of. And how I got into moderns was Jim Salee needed to get some birds of somebody. Well, they happened to be here for like 18 months before they decided they wasn't going to come get them. And I had raised some, and I always said it to everybody: if I had to have just one breed and variety or whatever, that would be it, because there's no less maintenance bird alive. They just kind of sit there in the cages and rake all the feed out of the dish and put more in the next day. And so that's how I come to them. My situation now, with not being able to get them outside, kind of keeps me from having them anymore. But I do enjoy them, and it was not for a love at first sight deal. It was just kind of having them around. And
well, I remember.
Go ahead.
I had got some in. Jesus, Bill Mayer.
Oh wow.
My kids were little, and Bill gave me some red piles.
I remember that.
And brown reds and something else, because he said they'd be good for the kids. Well, you know how Bill was. So I got him and messed with him, and Matt kept saying, "Why in the hell do you have those things?" But I mean, and I was thinking the same thing because I wasn't that way either. I loved Old English, but I didn't really like Montez. But you know what? I really got to like them. I mean, they just were, just, they're there. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Well, to you, but I mean to the public, and those same things are true. I mean, you you'd give them the same amount of feed as the Cornish. The Cornish could have feed. The Mountains would be all out because they never stop. They're
Yeah.
always farting around with something,
Yeah.
and when they're not, then they're sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't really have any, of course, mine were from Bill. Hell, Bill raised them, even farther north than me. Well, farther north than you.
Yeah.
He probably up Michigan. So, but I mean, they were hardy. They laid a good sized egg for the little bird. The males, his males, were not what too nasty, and the
Yeah.
females they talked all the time,
Yeah.
and the kids loved them. They could pick them up after they got used to you. Hell, they wouldn't go nowhere. They just wherever the kids went, they're fine.
They're following you.
And yeah, and so it was an interesting. And then I got out of him, and he gets into them, and I said, "What the hell we got that for?" And then he told me the story about what these were going to, but they're still here.
Yeah.
Those are my modern and Koshambo stories. Didn't want neither one of them, but I got them for people, and then they never come get them, and that's how I ended up with both those breeds.
Well, Air Mare. We used to. Bill was a character for sure, but
yeah, we could do a show on him. One old
exactly.
sometime.
Yeah, Monteith and I talk about it all the time. Different stories. You get the shows. He was a character. No.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He did a lot for the fancy. He helped a lot of people out.
He did. He would do anything for you.
Yes, he would.
I remember going to his place one time, and I was asking him. He had these big rolls. They're like about 8 to 10 feet long, and wide, should I say? And they were probably 40, 50 feet long, and it was this nylon, really tight netting type of thing. And I don't know. I'm raving about them. I said, they're great. He had them in his duck pens because the ducks could walk up on it and all the manure and stuff would go through, and you just hose it off. And I said, oh man, that stuff's pretty easy. Well, how many do you want? I'm like, no, I'm not, we're going to cross the border. Before we could even, say no, he already had them loaded in the back of the van. And we're like, what are we going to do now? I guess we're taking this stuff home. And it was awesome. I raised runners on it, of all things. And all the manure, you just spray it off every day. And now I put them up on platforms, and it worked awesome. But, he was just one of those guys that he would do anything for you, and didn't care what he said to anybody, which
no, he was not.
No,
not shy.
No, and I think the people that are easily offended, which of course none of us are because we have each other. But I mean, they're taken aback where that was just his way of communicating. He would do anything for you, anything at all. But I mean, he just had his ways, and you knew exactly what he thought about whatever it is the topic of discussion was.
Mm-hmm.
I like people like that. You never have to worry. I mean, if you don't like it, maybe you should just shut up and not say anything that time, because they'll come around to a subject you do like.
Well,
no, he was a character.
I was told by a very wise man many, many years ago, never leave an opportunity to keep your mouth shut. Sometimes the best thing is unsaid. So,
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, we. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to the tell us about the OPB. What's going on up there this year? Tell us the dates and what we got going on and all this hoopla, man.
Yeah. Well, OPB is brainchild of Paul and I. We started this thing 33-ish years ago. Started one night in the middle of the winter. We were just sitting around talking, and I said, I always wanted to have an all game show. So like, Old English, moderns, Cornish, like hard feather birds. And he says, wow, funny. He says, I always wanted to have an all rock show. And we chatted as we normally did, a couple of times a week. And nothing was said. And he called me up about a month later. He goes, "When are we doing that show anyway?" I thought, "Well, I never thought about it, you know." And he says, "Well, I'm going to call, Mike at this facility and see if we can get the building for this date." And I said, "Sure." So we did it, and we ran it, and we had 480 some birds and three breeds of chickens, big and little. And it was like, wow. But we had these guys that showed up, and they're like, "Next year, are you going to add any breeds to it?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. This is working." So like, should we? And anyway, at the time we had a real big group of guys showing call ducks and sea brights. And when I say that, I mean a couple hundred of these things would show up at some of the shows. So let's add them. So we added them. But then some of our breeds, like the rocks, went down a little bit, because that first year we had 99 rocks, large fowl, which we don't get that now,
No.
and all colors. I mean, we had whites, buffs, silver pencil, but it was a great show. Anyway, so the next year we added those extra 2 breeds, and our entry really stayed around that 450, 475 type thing. So we sat there and talked. And let's just open this up, and we never looked back. I mean, we always had a one-day show for years, and back in 2000, Monty's the idea man. So he kind of pushed to run. He says, "Let's bid on a national." I'm like, "Nobody's going to come to a national in freaking Ontario." And he's like, "Well, they did back in 1950. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Well, back in 1950, the APA convention, which was back then was a big to do.
Yeah, big deal.
I mean, like suit and tie, and
Yep.
big names in poultry back then. Schilling was there doing pictures, and these guys, like famous people in the hobby. Not in the hobby, it was an industry then, really.
Yep.
They came to Simcoe, Ontario, and they had their convention there, and it was very well received. And it was funny. We put the word out that we bid on this national and got it, and we started planning. Basically 18 months out, we started planning. And that was the easiest show we ever did. To this day, that was the easiest show we ever did. And we had 2,450 birds or in that vicinity. And that was like the biggest show that we'd had in Canada probably ever. To my knowledge, it's the biggest one that we ever had.
I think we need to preface a little bit to some of the people that aren't familiar with Canada, but it used to be the Royal. That was the big show.
That was
the winter time up, and that kind of went away. So you guys had a lot of smaller, because I've been following up there since the 90s.
Yeah,
but you had a lot of small regional shows, but not one big show.
No,
so when this came about, you kind of
and just
back.
And to predate that, we had like the Canadian International Classic, which was a good show and a big show. They had a big following, and I showed it every year. It was where I kind of got my start. I was right when I was starting to judge was when it kind of faded out. And it was a great show. They also had pigeons at it as well, ducks, geese, and everything. So when we decided we were going to do this show, it was like, wow, this is like going to be a big thing, I think. We had, I was very worried about it because, Paul and I were judging quite a bit back in those days. And we'd be, "Oh, we're coming to your show." And we'd be down like in Virginia. I remember down there. It was like, I pulled him aside on Sunday morning. I said, "What are we going to do?" And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Like, if all these people come," and he goes, "Don't worry, they'll slowly fade away. A solid bunch will come," he says, "but and the border is always a big issue. People are afraid of it. Once you've done it once, you'll figure it out. It's not as difficult. It's no different for us to go down as you guys to come up. But convincing people of that can be a bit of a challenge. So the biggest problem with the whole border thing is it's a money grab. Everybody's looking to get their little piece of it. But we do it on it religiously to go to Ohio. We go to Congress most years. We usually start and go to Bath, New York. That's one of the closest ones that we're to. And obviously different years, somebody has a wedding or, there's too much going on, or, got a couple of good judges coming up to judge the fair locally.
Yeah.
We might, I haven't tried
That's if one judge's passport gets back in time.
I
It's
see.
been
Okay.
renewed, but with all the cuts down here, we're just hoping that they say it will be back. But
well, so it's like I say, it's a pain in the butt, but we're the most hospitable bunch in the world. We try to make sure you have a good time.
I can testify. Mike and I've been there several times, but Mike's been there a couple times.
Yeah.
A great show to judge, great people. I love the fairs. I've done a couple of your fairs up there. Actually, I did one way up for Becker, way up there in Huron, up on Lake Huron.
Yeah.
It's just neat to see different breeds, varieties, and people in the hobby. So,
well, that Acton fair, that was as good at birds as I've handled. I mean, that was wild, man.
Well,
that was really good.
Our Acton fair, and nothing against Stringman by any means, because they were the backbone of this hobby. Let's face it. And we used to have a decent show. Like we used to have like 1,100 head, 1,000, come in there, and a couple. I don't know. We had a couple of guys that weren't showing the best birds, and some of the fair board members were complaining, and they said, what are you going to do to clean this show up? And I said, well, if we sanction it and change the whole premium situation, I think we can do it. And so that's what we did. So basically, our shows we take in. We have a list that we publish of breeds like they do at most fairs and stuff, but that means nothing. We just make up the classes as we go. We don't pay 1, 2, 3 prize money. We pay best of variety, reserve of variety, best of breed, reserve of breed, and classifications, best and reserve. And then overall champion gets something. And we don't charge entry fee. We just charge a 10% of the take. If you show and win more than $50, we take 10%, which is, if you do the math, it's nothing. And literally, we have some of the best breeders in the province, and sometimes we get them from outside the province coming to show. And you guys judged it. I mean, there's some good birds there. It's early.
Nice pigeon. You got a really good pigeon show. I was impressed with some of the pigeon breeds that were there and the quality that was exhibited. Plus the best group, and I tell Louis this all the time, but that was the best group of Toulouse old ganders I ever judged in my life, and I think there was like 15 of them. All different stages of condition that time of year, but some very good Toulouse, some very good runners, very good crested ducks. I seen some. I mean, the waterfowl classes that really amazed me, for that time of year. So
we've got an international waterfowl meet there this year, just because we got the waterfowl to do it.
You have it, you definitely do.
Yeah. And so we changed that, and the first couple of years we only had a couple hundred birds, and now we're sitting around that 600, and that building's all it can take is about 600.
Yeah, it's loaded.
Yes, good size.
Out of that 600, there's probably less than 20 birds that probably shouldn't be there. It's
right.
It's pretty good that way. And anyway, back to OPB. I mean, so we started that back in '93, and we had it was 1 year. So in 2000, we had the APA National. We had our regular show, which is just our club show, if you want to call it that. And that was the 2000 show for APA was October. December, we had our regular show. And then the following April, we had the ABA semi-annual, which is the first time it ever came across the border. So what I'm trying to tell you is we're suckers for punishment. We like to put on good shows, and we had the following, and we never look back. Back in 2012, we had the first Canadian National that we hosted. There was a couple prior to that, and right now the facility that we have 3 buildings. One of them's a big cattle exhibition place, and it's amazing. And the people, the fairgrounds down there, they're absolute amazing people. They help us out a lot, and the facility's nice. We're not too far from the hotel.
Very nice. Very nice.
This year, it sounds like we're gonna have a call show from like craziness. Just if everybody shows up that says they're going to, we'll probably have 500 or 600 calls there. So, waterfowl is becoming a huge part of our organization, and we cater to them. I mean, if you want to bring your birds, let's go, and we give them their own dedicated building, which is amazing because it lets you see them. I mean, we have big wide aisles, and everything's singled up.
I can testify. I think I judged the last time I judged up there. I got to sit down for several hours with Gerald Donnelly, which I hadn't had a chance to talk to him in years. And I was, one of the big things is that he knew I was a Palm Goose guy, so we talked about them. But the Beltsville turkeys, I think there was 28 of them. I don't think I've ever seen that many. So Terry Britt and I and a couple others really went down through there with him, and Gerald had them at the time. And I said, where did all these Beltsville come from? And then I got the story of how half of them went to Guelph, half of them went to Wisconsin, and these are descended from, so it was kind of interesting. It was great to see him again. And I didn't, he passed after that, but it was a good experience, and the quality in through there in all the breeds, Aylesbury's, he always had nice Aylesbury. There were some nice geese in there. I think if memory serves me right, there was some hellacious Egyptians.
Yes.
Back there. So
back when you were here, we were getting anywhere from 30 to 40 Egyptians at every show. I mean, I love them geese because you can put them in large fowl coops.
Yeah, they're going a little, and probably better that they are.
Yeah.
I was just amazed at the quality. I knew if he was there was going to be some good ones, but that was something to see, and I'm glad that that's still going. With him passing and stuff, I was kind of worried, but
and Jerry was a dear friend of mine. We worked together with some Egyptians for a while, and I got some Ellsberries from him, and learned my lesson that I don't want Ellsberries, and and I remember
love hate.
Oh yeah, I had Rowans that I got from Paget years prior to that, and I thought, oh, those white ducks are going to be and they're not. They're about night and day from each other, Rowans, I always found they're like one of the neatest, like tidiest breeds of ducks there is. I mean, if a duck can be tidy, they are.
Not Ellsbury's.
Not Ellsbury's. If there's an inch of mud, they're in it. So, and then it's a foot of mud after that. So
of all the ones that I've had, I miss the Rowans more than anything because, like you said, they would in the summertime they were a ranging duck.
Yeah,
I could put them out and they stay clean and didn't eat much, but if you got a white duck, oh my God, it's a whole different game. So.
And I had a lot of experience. I always, as a judge, I always try to bring in something new every couple of years just to learn. And back in the day, I was bringing in. I had Toulouse here. I had the 1 year. It made my day really because Jerry and I kind of worked together with him a little bit. I had 2 pair here, and he had 22 pairs at his place. I was like his pride and joy, like his, he goes, this guy raised 28 geese. I raised 2. So I was like, and he goes like, how did you have such great success? Well, I listened to what you told me, between him and Louis Cunningham, those 2 guys helped me out a lot. And I learned a lot about Toulouse, and it was a joy at the end when I decided I was going to get out of them. I took some back to both Louis and to Jerry, and Paul got some of them too. Monteith got some of them, and he worked with them for a few years, and he's still raising a few now.
He still got some. The last time I was there at his house, he had some nice ones running around. I was impressed.
Yeah, those weren't my lines that he's had recently, but yeah.
Speaking of Jerry Donnelly, that night in the motel, he sat with Matt and I at the bar at a table. 2 hours, Matt, maybe.
Oh yeah, it was a long time. That was after a couple of 2-3 hours at the show. I mean, we had already talked about everybody and everything else at the show.
To everybody that you never know when anything's your last time. But not only learn more, reminded of things that I knew, but you know how life goes.
Yeah.
But just for his zest for living, and for Rowans, I'm going to go over to France, and I'm thinking, good Lord, man. But I mean, just that
he was in his late 80s then when he was.
I mean, but because you know what, that's what he did. It's what I do. That's sort of why you doing this. It's because that's what I do. And I'll treasure that.
His health was terrible, but that's what kept him alive, was going out to run the birds every day, And one of my last trips to the farm, I forgot I was working with Beamer on some Brahma dark Brahma project, and he loved using setting hens to raise stuff with. So I took him a whole bunch of Brahma pullets that were somewhere between a dark and a light. And anyway, I just took him to him, and he goes, "Have you ever seen Outback?" And I'm like, "What do you mean Outback?" He will jump on the 4-wheeler and we'll go for a ride. So he takes me to the back of the property, and there was 200 bronze turkeys back there running in a field. And I'm like, "What are you going to do, Jerry?" He goes, "Next week we're running them into the building and we're going to sort." And he says, "I'm keeping 20 pair and the rest are going for meat." And I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, you could have walked in there comparable to anything that you've ever seen anywhere winning turkeys. I mean, these things were amazing. And he also had a few other varieties of turkeys as well, but that was amazing. And then he took me over the hill, and like what you didn't see when you went to Jerry's place was there was like 180 acres there. There's ponds and buildings and way in the back that I never knew were there. And he took me through the whole thing, and it was like, what have you been keeping this from me all these years? I mean, I've been here hundreds of times, but I never did know any of this existed, But that was just the way Jerry was, He's always kind of a secretive kind of guy, but very wealth of information. And what always got me is he'd come here when I had the Toulouse, and he'd go, male, 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 female, male. And I'm like, "Do you want to vent them?" "No, I don't need to vent them. Just watch. See, look at the bill. The bill's down a little bit." And I'm like, oh my God, he could sex them from 40 feet away and, be 100% on. Like, it was amazing. But,
Yeah. How many years did he do it?
yeah, well, that's it, right? And
that's what he did. Like I said, that's what he did.
Yeah, amazing.
And he was very good at what he did.
Yeah,
very good.
So, back to the show.
We keep distracting you from OPB.
Yeah, that's all right.
From the OPB, man.
Yeah. So OPB. So I mentioned Paul. He was one of the guys that him and I basically started it, and another guy that came along was Brad Mansfield. And Brad's had chickens off and on over the years, and he doesn't go to every show, but he's one of those guys that he literally just comes and helps. And he's an organizer, and he can look down if you've got a corner that you got to go around, he can figure out how to get the most cages out of that corner. He's just one of those guys that can just look and visually set up a show. And thank God he came along, because back in, I think it was 2012, Paul had the newspaper, The Feather Fancier, and he had some pigeons on the go and the chickens. And, he just basically says, look, at some point in time, we all got to realize that we're going to take a step back. And he says, I'm taking a step back. And I said, fine, not a problem. I said, do you care if I keep on? And he said, no, I don't care. That's fine. So Brad kind of came in on just at the right time, and he helped me run it for a couple of years, and to this day still does, and one of the valued members of our team, obviously. And then Mr. Beamer, John Beamer, came along just at a real good time as well, and he's a go-getter. And the four of us, we have these meetings every once in a while. We'll go to a restaurant and have a couple of beverages and get some things settled out. But we also have meetings on the phone all the time. I'll talk to one of them, and the other one will talk to the other. And we all have our jobs. And I think that's the key to our success, is literally that everybody has a job. We don't step on each other's toes. We do check up on each other all the time. Did this get done? Did that get done? Blah, 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 blah. By what I do for a living, which is logistics, I'm always thinking 10 steps ahead. Paul's much the same, as Brad and John are as well. We try to keep on top of things. It's funny, I write down on my calendar. I'm old school. I also have the calendar that comes up on my computer, but I always write things on the calendar. And, every year I just sit there at my desk about the middle of September and go, I got to call the insurance company today for OPB insurance. And I'll look up, and that'll be the day on the calendar that I'm supposed to be calling them anyway. It's just, we all have that systematic thing that
I can say one thing, and because like I said, I've been involved with you guys for a while, but all this show has not been without adversity. You went through, I don't know how many disease problems, COVID, it always comes to the, I guess the cream always comes to the top. But you got a great facility, you got great help, and whatever the shit they throw at you, you guys seem to come out of it.
Well,
And not many shows can do that anymore. A lot of them just fold up and quit. But you guys have went through all that crap.
Yeah, we really have. We really have.
Yep.
And out of the 33 years that we've been in business, we've missed 1 year. And that was simply because of, and it wasn't COVID. It was actually bird flu. It was bad in our area. It really was. And I mean, where that building is that we use is literally in the heart of commercial poultry area. You don't have a choice, They literally shut down the whole province, and I knew it was going to happen. And I back up just a little bit. I do a lot of gratis work with our provincial and our federal government. I try to be a partner. I had the good fortune of meeting our provincial poultry specialist. God, it's got to be close to 30 years ago. We've become tight friends. I mean, we discuss these stuff all the time. Something's coming down the pipe. I know about it before it ever hits anywhere. You guys have both been on. I used to put out an email whenever there was something going on, and I included everybody. It's just, just general knowledge. And it's a good relationship because, there was a point in time where we weren't sure that we were going to be able to have shows and whatnot. They were, the commercial poultry were wanting to shut us down. And
right.
I got invited to some pretty intense meetings. I'm sitting in a room. I'm the only guy from our sector of poultry, and I'm meeting with guys from the egg producers. I'm meeting with the turkey farmers. I'm meeting with the broiler people. And I remember one instance, I'm sitting in this room, and they're all bashing and just, the backyard people, the hobbyists, they're going to kill us, blah, blah, blah. And I stuck up my hand, and the guy from the federal government who knew, I'm friends with him too for a very long time. He goes, "Yes, Troy, you have something to add?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a question. If you guys are all practicing biosecurity the way that you're supposed to practice biosecurity, why are you worried about us? Because it shouldn't get in if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing." You could have heard a pin drop in this friggin' room because I hit a nerve. And the turkey guy from the turkey board, we're under, our whole system up here is all quota, so we have boards. Anyway, the turkey guy turned around and he goes, "This guy's right. We don't follow our own rules." And they were all like taken back. And it's like, I said, "Just explain to me," and basically the chairman of this meeting goes, "You've made your point. Thank you." But
you went right to the jugular. That's for
well,
sure.
and I had nothing to lose because what are they going to do to me?
Yeah,
And
I already didn't like you. Yeah.
I said, look, we could go away tomorrow and you're still going to have your problems. And they're right.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. So anyway, like I say, back to we're shut down once through COVID. We did some pretty funky things. We had our judges in there with their clerks, and we would only let so many. I had everybody that signed up to come to be exhibitor. Everybody had a different color wristband, and yellows were allowed in for this hour, and the pinks were in for the next hour, and the blues were in. We switched between the buildings and everything, kept everybody socially distanced. We did it. Was it a lot of work? Yeah. We had to pay security for the gates because, you just couldn't let everybody walking in and stuff. We did it all, but we did it, and the people that came appreciated what we did. I'm going to lead that into anything you want to know about OPB. There's four of us that it's our heart and soul. We start working on it. John always says we don't talk chickens for at least 1 to 2 weeks after the show, but we do start the following week. We start talking about the new year. We're booking our hotels. We're doing whatever. We're always trying to be one step ahead all the time. And you can ask Paul. He's our judge hiring guy. We all discuss it, who we want, and then he goes out and does it. And we're usually 2 years in advance. And people think we're
Which
crazy.
is smart. No, that's smart.
Well, people think we're crazy, but if you want to get who you want to get, if you don't ask, calling a month before the show is no good. You're not going to get.
I tell them I'm booking right now for 2027.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's, especially your date, because I think there's 4 or 5 shows down here that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's from the 1st of September, Mike and I both, until the middle of January anymore. We could be gone every weekend, sometimes 2 or 3 places if we wanted to. And we got to slow down. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. So I'm like going every other week. So
yeah, I'm just a little bit younger than you guys. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how old you are exactly, but I love the road, but it does
retirement age.
Yeah,
full retirement age.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
whatever that is.
Well, the other thing is the whole family life situation too.
Yep.
My kids are grown, but we still have. I've got aging parents that have health issues, and my wife does as well, and we have to look out for that too. That's very important. If it wasn't for them, I couldn't leave. My youngest son helps look after the birds when I'm not here, and my eldest son actually, when we were down in Ohio for Tyler's wedding, he looked after things when we were here. We sell eggs to all the neighbors and whatnot, and if they want eggs, I mean, you got to be here to sell them. So and anyway, it's literally our whole situation at OPB is a partnership. We also, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but I mean, we got guys like Shane Cramp,
Dave Andriel,
and Steve Van Locum, and the whole Niagara Club. They come out and they help. We have a bunch of other people that come out and help. And like I say, I hate dropping names because I'm gonna miss somebody. I'm horrible with names anymore. But it's a community effort, and everybody cares. Everybody cares about the show. I mean.
The great thing that I need to mention, because it always amazes me every year, is your auctions, and plus your online auctions that you guys do of old memorabilia. This is crazy.
I'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, we were blessed and cursed at the same time. As we lose some of our elderly people in our hobby, we get stuff given to us. Let's put it that way. We purchase some of it. We're not looking for freebies. We literally find stuff that we think needs to be preserved, if that makes sense. All of us are big fans of what's behind me here. These shillings, the Lewis Paulgrams, the Sewells, the Getzes, all that stuff to me needs to be preserved, because most of it ends up, unfortunately, in the garbage when Grandpa dies. And we've been fortunate enough to find some of that stuff and pass it on. And I do the research on everything. I take the pictures. I do the write-ups. Like I say, we all have jobs. Monteith's the tag guy. He tags anybody that thinks might be interested in it. And John just knows how to market that stuff. And I mean, we're not the smartest bunch of guys, but what works. And, we made a lot of money off that. Like I say, we buy some of it, so it does just cost a little bit. I have a person in my local town here that does all the framing for us and all the matting. And, that's a small fortune in itself, but she treats us really well.
I know. Yep.
Artifacts is the name of the place here in Georgetown, and Kathy looks after us tremendously well. I actually brought 2 shillings in yesterday for John to get framed up properly, and I mean, she does an amazing job. So with that, and we try to find unique things that mean different things to different people. Of all the stuff we sold, I think we've only had like 2 dogs that either didn't sell or it just didn't bring the money we thought it should. And that's okay. I mean, we do really well. But at our show, I mean, we try to get breeders, and not local breeders. That's to us, that makes no sense. I mean, why would you spend decent money on something that you can go to the same guy and get at that show? I mean, we're trying to bring in new lines of whatever, or new breeds or whatever it may be. And we get guys, it's funny, we get guys that ask us, well, can you think you could get some of this in? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. And we don't, we've had guys that, out of the goodness of their heart, guys and girls that have donated birds to us, outright. But over the last bunch of years, it's like, what do you need? Because like, I'd like to be able to literally offer you some money for it, because as you guys know, we get crazy money for some of this stuff. It just depends on who's there. But I mean, when you're getting $800 for a pair of large white rocks, I mean, wow. Even with the exchange, I don't care. Even with the exchange, that's good money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I mean, that doesn't happen every year, but we've done very well. And
yes, you have.
the guys come out and literally, donate to us for sure. So the one thing I do want to touch on, and this is, I saw you guys put on there that I'll talk about APA, ABA politics. And
well, only because you're one of the few people I don't know, but Mike hasn't done much on the APA side, and I've done a little bit, but that have been in this. And I think we need your perspective because they hear us banging on every week.
Right.
So.
Right. And, so my background with it is, I spent, I think it was six or 8 years, I can't remember exactly, as director on the APA side of things. After that, I was APA vice president for 2 terms, so 4 more years. I was on the board of the ABA board. According to Karen, I'm the longest standing director, at different times. I mean, I had to break in between when I was with the APA, but it's somewhere around 16 years. And then I spent another term as vice president. I've seen a lot. I know a lot. I see how things work. I encourage people to get involved. Being a district director, number one, if you want to start out something smaller than that, being a state or a provincial rep is a good way to go. But do it for the right reasons. I see so many people getting involved, and this is not a platform for self-promotion or anything like that. To me, you got to be there for the hobby, for the best interest of the hobby. It's not a matter of getting hired at these different shows, especially if you're a judge, to get hired. I mean, if you're any good, you're going to get hired. You don't need to be politically, and doing the right thing. Sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do. And I'll give you the example of that. I mean, I've had to vote on items on both boards that personally I didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. But when my district is telling me this is what I want, it's my obligation.
You have to represent your district. Yep.
To represent my district, and good or bad. I mean, but you have to, as a district director, you have to take that step back. You just have to do the right thing for your district. Might not be what you believe in, but that's what needs to be done. And I think for the most part, especially ABA, I think we have an amazing board right at the moment. We've got some really good people on there. APA, I don't know. I think there's a bit of a changing of the guard coming down the next, Jeff's running. I don't know if anybody else is or not. And nothing against who's running on there, who is on there now. But, I just recall there was a couple of older directors when I was on the APA board that have been there forever, and they stuck together like, we'll just call it excrement on the blanket. And I mean, nothing really ever got changed. And I mean, a stagnant board is a dead board as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons I like the ABA bylaws, because we do have term limits. And right. I've always preached that needed to be on the other side as well, because I too have seen directors sit in there for maybe 10, 12 years and not do a damn thing, and place the same meets at the same shows and whatever. And I think you need new ideas, new faces, new people.
I do. I agree. Like when Bill asked me to be VP, it took some convincing, and I had a replacement in John, and I'm glad at that. It gave me a rest back, and what I'm doing for the ABA right now, I'm happy doing.
We're happy to have you.
It's an enjoyable thing. It's like, it's funny, and I've got Kyle on my committee, and it works good because we talk, and that's the nice part about some of these committees. If it's somebody that you can work with, that you speak to anyway, we get a lot of things hashed out and stuff, and my idea with the bylaws committee and constitution and bylaws is we need to be kind of trying to keep ahead of the curve. Once again, I'm a planner. That's the way it works.
Yep.
You know, we need to change things every so often, and you know, just review things. Even, you know,
Yep.
is this a good rule? Does it make sense, or you know, do we need to review it? So, but
And we've done that. I think we've been very on our side because I've been in it about. I think I didn't really start as a director till 2008, but I've been influencing the board since like 2000 because I got them on the internet. And when they brought me into that meeting in 2000 to get them on the internet, the old guy said, "Well, this is just a fad. This thing will last."
Yes.
So both the APA and the ABA side, I was instrumental with both those, getting them online, and now look at it. So yeah, things have to change. I think Jeff said at one time, he said, change is inevitable, but success is not. And that's just it right there. Everything's going to change. Whether it's good or not is how you make it. So that's kind of how I got involved. It wasn't because I wanted to do this. I mean, Jeff called me up and says, "Do you want to be vice president?" I said, "Hell no."
Yeah.
I said, I like what I'm doing. And I still do. I still like being on the outside advising in instead of being up there, because when you're vice president, you take all the hits. I mean, you're taking the direct shots. And those of you that know me, sometimes it's not good to give me a direct hit because you're probably going to get one right back. And so that was my fear going into those positions, because I'm going to tell you, you might not want to hear it, but I'm not going to wish it, and you're going to get it straight up. And it's worked out. And I replaced you when you had to take away for a little bit. And it's been good to get back into it because I'd stepped away for a little bit. And I think Karen appreciates us being back because we're getting a lot of things done, getting things accomplished that sometimes gets bogged down in committees and, you know, all that. So that's what I like about it. And the ABA and the APA both, I think, are a good place now. So, and again, if you don't like it, volunteer, get in there, do it, change it.
You can volunteer so many different ways, and the volunteers we have on not just our district directors and stuff, but on our committees and stuff it's really good. And I purposely did a couple things when we were doing the committees. Is there's frankly people that I'm friendly with on some of them. And we're friends doing it, but I don't necessarily agree with a lot of stuff. But I think that's what's important, is that so I have to convince you and you have to convince me. Somewhere we can meet in the middle, what's good for the club, not for you, not for me. Don't give a shit. It's what's going to move us forward. And the same way with you two. I mean, I get a lot of harebrained ideas, you know, and Troy, you don't hear as many of as Matt does because or well, let's try it. You know, tell me another way. Here's where I want to get. I don't know how to get there. And I think all of us, especially us that know each other real well, it's that way. It's like, I want to go here, but I don't know just how to get there. Well, everybody helps each other get to where the whole club's supposed to be. It's the same way with you guys at OPB, right? I mean, you're good friends and stuff, but everybody knows their job, and if you need help, you ask. Or you take the other opinions and you go, yeah, damn it, they're right. I mean, that is the way to do it. So then life goes on because it's the betterment for what you're all working for, not where, hey, look at me, I got this passed. That don't mean shit. You know, it's the betterment.
And that's exactly it. Like, I mean, and when we talk about having jobs at OPB, you know, everybody, they always ask me, what do you think about the awards, doing this, doing that? Do what you want. I don't care. I don't care. No. And there's other things that I do dearly care about, you know, and
exactly,
you know, you kind of got to ebb and flow, if you will. And like I say, we have the whole safety net because everybody's checking on each other, and not to the point of being micromanaged or anything like that. It's just like, hey, did that get done? Yeah. Don't worry about it. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I'll get it done. You know,
the proof in the pudding is it all flows. So you know, when everybody's doing their little part of it, everything flows. So on the ABA side, that's been good the last several years. It kind of all flows together. All the people on the committees get their things done. And you can tell I always say that the true test of an organization is how long their board meetings are. So, Troy, you've been in some of them all nighters, and I think when Jeff come on, it was like, we're going to get this done in an hour. And we've kind of held to that. I held to it when I was there. Mike's doing it now. We got at Columbus where was we at? Congress the last time, but even Oklahoma before that, we got a whole bunch of stuff done that wasn't like easy peasy crap. We had to discuss it and, hash it out and compromise. But at both those, we were done in an hour and a half, and everybody was happy with what we did. And I think that's the true secret. If you got to sit there for hours on end and fight, it's not a good thing. Number one, for the hobby. Number two, you're not doing what the membership wants at that point, I think.
Oh, you're plowing the same ground 4 or 5 times, man. You keep plowing the same ground. You're not getting anywhere. You got to get somewhere. That's the whole idea, is to go from point A to point B. Sometimes, we got to go to C or D to get back to B. But hell, you have to respect each other.
Yeah,
I'd have to think that's probably it.
That's what we have with OPV. I mean, we don't always agree on everything, but it's like, majority rules, and nobody gets offended. It's like, it's as I put it, it's just another show. If it works, we'll do it again. If it doesn't work, we're not doing it again. So.
Exactly. We'll go back to what worked, but we'll try this. If it works, great. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly
back to the auctions for just a second. People think I'm sure people think that we're taking vacations on the money that we take in for this kind of stuff. But we all have the same mentality. Is we're always trying to look ahead to make our job that we do easier. End of story.
Right.
So, I mean, years ago, we started skirting the show. And everybody's like, oh, it looks so great. Okay, we didn't do that for looks. What do you mean? I says, at the end of the show, everything folds up, into the bin, gone. Wow. Yeah, we clean that whole building. The 3 buildings are cleaned up within 3 hours after we let everybody go. We're sitting having lunch and cervezas after that. So it's like, it's just.
And it looks really nice, too. So,
yeah. And it all practical stuff, though. I mean, we hire in some extra help for setup and tear down as well. And it works because, these guys come in and they work like dogs. We feed them some food and pay them some money. And I mean, above and beyond our volunteers, it helps get the job done in a hurry, and it just takes the load off us. Right. So, and I have to do one more shout out for OPV. And Laura Beamer, she, I take the entries, it goes through my fingers. I surf through all the mistakes and the questionable things. Then it goes through John, and then Laura does the tags, and she is our tagging queen and does an amazing job getting everything. And, our tags aren't like everybody else's. They're computer generated, and they look amazing, and it's easy to follow. So,
I agree. You guys have.
It makes a nice presentation, not only for the exhibitor, the judge, but also one of the biggest complaints about Columbus is the tags, because they're all handwritten. But for the spectator, because they can walk down through there and make some kind of semblance out of what's in that cage. That's one of our misses, and I know Newt's working on it, but to try to get something different for them, because when you're looking at 6,000 to 8,000, that's a whole different game, and it's just never been practical. But hopefully, we're going to try to work with him on that as well to try to find something.
All things in time, Newt's got some shoes to fill. In Kalal's passing, it's going to be different. I know it'll continue on and be good. But and I'm sure that Newt's got ideas about, making it better, and, that's part of it, that, growing situation, and
the good thing is, for the last 4 or 5 years, Newt and Jonathan have been in the office doing all that. So the actual paperwork coming back is computerized, and so they're familiar with what needs to be done. I think I share his concern, because so many of the programs available are now cloud-based. And he doesn't want that. He wants something, because of the unreliability of the internet in that building, because, your phone service, you might be able to get a call and then you might not. It's just kind of shaky. So he wants something, a hard program that he can put on a PC to use. And those just aren't out there now. Everything's everything's out on the cloud and everybody wants to charge you to access it. So
ours is literally just something that John and Laura came up with, and it's literally just a label making machine, which is great because you just kind of do how many entries does this exhibitor have, blah 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 blah, and then you just kind of she picks, and I don't know. I've seen it. I just know it's good at the end, and that's all.
Yeah, you don't have to make it function. That's
yeah, and that's that's our whole secret right there. Is just you find something that works and somebody's willing to do it. Stand back and let it out.
Before we get done, tell us what you're having this year. We get history the OPB, but how about this year? What we got going before we move on?
Yeah, so this year we have, for the first time ever, we have the ABA Canadian National, which is an absolute amazing thing that I've been kind of hinting around for about 10 years. But anyway, it's happened, and I'm happy.
So you give John credit for that. John, John actually give us, as a board member, a great perspective of the Canadian exhibitor and the American organizations, and what we're doing and what we're not doing, and it really opened some eyes, because once we went to vote that in, I think it was unanimous. One of mine, it was like, this is a great idea.
Well, we didn't know. I mean, we knew. We talked to you guys, but we didn't know what the greater everybody else thought. You know what I'm saying? So you think everything's great because we see you guys all the time, say 3 or 4, right? Maybe 5, maybe 6, but we don't know about the other how many there are.
Yeah.
What the general opinion is. So that was fantastic. It opened all of our eyes. I thought, well, shit, I never thought of that before.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. Like back when we divided, because we used to have 2 districts up here, and it didn't really make sense to have 2 districts with the amount of people we had, because we're so spread out. And that's the one thing that I touched on but didn't get done to my satisfaction, was to expand the membership up here. It has its ebbs and flows, and having a presence at the show makes all the difference as far as I'm concerned. Because there was a couple of years back there, my wife and one of the other girls, I still have some of the shirts and stuff here. We sold memberships, and we sold books, and we sold T-shirts and whatnot. And just having that presence, we increased our membership by like 30, 40 people, for one show. And it's like, this is what needs to happen over here. The unfortunate part is, when I was district director, I'm running the show, John's running the show. We don't have the time. We just don't have the time and the manpower to do it. But we're still talking. So Mike and I are talking anyway. So we're going to try to get somebody to do some of that.
To come up and do it. Yeah, that's always a good thing. Even with the membership cost, he kind of opened our eyes up there. So now we've got everybody the same. And we're debating on what we're going to do with the yearbooks. So that's not etched in stone either. So we can get a bunch of them to you guys, and you can pass them out there. Because I think the last time, we had 69 Canadian members. So even if I got to pay for it, we're going to get them a yearbook. So that's not a problem.
The one year Karen gave them to me in Bath, I think it was, and I mailed them, and it was substantially less to even mail them. And I handed out a large amount of them at our shows and whatnot over the next couple of weeks, and it made sense.
We're kind of in that process now, because I think the yearbook's getting close to going to the printer. And once she has to supply the mailing and list to the printers. But once she gets the foreign mailing list together, I don't think we're going to mail international outside of Canada. But I think because it's going to be a digital version, it's going to be on the website. So it's not like you're not going to be able to have access to it. As soon as we get the digital file, we'll get it up there. So they can look at it that way. But, a lot of people like me, I collect, there are millions of them around here, but I collect the physical yearbooks. But I know some of the Canadian members expressed that they didn't like what we did, but we'll get them the yearbook. It's just going to be a matter of how.
And the thing is, too, if you can bulk mail one big shipment and then get it dropped here, it just makes all the sense in the world most of the time. I did the year I did it, I based it off the furthest point to the west of me, and based all the costs on that. And honestly, some of them were a lot less than that too. But it worked out well, and I only got one back. Some each had one or two. So.
And I
No, that's
think
good.
our technology a little better now with bad addresses, so
Yeah.
we're able to do that, and so that's coming. That's great. I'm glad that all that's happening. Up, Mike must have the grandkids.
Oh yeah, they just come rolling in. I told them an hour or so, so I guess we're a little over an hour. So they committed. It seems like they're right by this door. Never the rest of the house. They go to the other and you can't hear a damn thing.
Yeah.
But they're either right outside my window or right outside my door. It's an amazing thing.
All right, we're at about hour 20. We can let Troy wrap it up. I'll quit interrupting.
Okay. Well, I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. We hope you can. All you guys are out there that are thinking about coming to OPV, we have a thing up on our Facebook page. Explains on what you got to do to get across the border with birds. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly. Either Paul, John, Brad, any of us. We're all there to help.
I always send them to Tyler because Tyler's the veteran of getting birds across. So if you have any issues, talk to Tyler.
Yeah, he's good at it, and we always try to let Tyler kind of divulge what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. But I'm not saying that he'll do it for you because he won't. But it's the same with me. I'll explain on how to do it, but there's only so much we can do from our side. So. But it's well worth a while if you've ever done it. And I mean, we got a ton of people up here that are just begging to see some of you guys, and they read about you and see you online and whatnot. And
we have a lot of followers. I know from some of the. I'm always amazed every week from some of the responses and emails and messages I get. And a lot of them are coming from up north. So
yeah.
I mean, the whole hobby here, is really taking shape and changing. 10 years ago, OPV, of course, the entries come to me, so I'm looking at them and I'm like, I don't know any of these people. I mean, we got 80 exhibitors so far, and they're still rolling in, and like, there's only 40 of them that I know. Like, what is going to go on here? Like, you don't know if you're going to get your local co-op TSC, average birds coming through the door, and all these people, I had no idea who they were. And I was so taken back with the quality that year. It was like, wow, like, where do these people come from? And, they just word of mouth, like we are, and don't like to step on anybody's toes, but we are the Ohio National of the North.
Yep.
We really, and we take pride in that. I mean, it didn't come easy. We worked really hard to get it to where it is, and our crew is amazing, and we do a good show. I'm not afraid to pat myself on the back on that one. So It's not just me.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, because if it wasn't for all these other people, it wouldn't happen. So,
well, I guess we're lucky because we've seen the progression. Over the years. So, and everybody, all of us have been in the show business and started shows, and, that cost of buying cages and moving cages, and I feel your pain. So you've got to raise money to the exhibit. Everybody thinks that exhibitor's fee goes so far.
Oh yeah. And like I said, people think we're taking vacations and stuff.
Yeah.
But, when you start buying trailers to put your cages on, buying cages, buying wood, buying whatever it is, and then well, people don't think about the whole judges end of thing too. We're paying air flights and lodging and whatnot. And they're not making any money at it. I know as a judge, I don't make any money at it. I have to say this one quote before we go. So, back in the day, I was judging Tennessee Valley Fair one year, and a whole bunch of us were out for dinner. And Hugh Barnett, which you guys knew, was there at the table, and somebody was talking money and chickens, and he goes, "Well, there's all kinds of money in this hobby." All of us turned and looked at him. He goes, "Yeah, unfortunately, it's all going the wrong way, though." So, I mean,
I always tell them I put it there. I know it's there.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a guy that I miss a lot. Is all those guys from Tennessee. Some of them have passed, but Hugh being
still with us. He was showing pigeons for a
Pigeons,
while. So
yeah.
I seen him at Knoxville a couple times when we used to have a pigeon show down there along with the chicken show. But that was a good bunch.
Him and Mr. Woody, and there's a whole bunch of them down there. Treadway's about the only one left, I think. The shows.
Treadway and probably Cotton.
Yeah, Cotton too. Yeah. But anyway, other than that,
all right. Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for being on.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Troy. It's been a blast. Anything comes up or anything before the show, and you need to shout out, you don't want to get on for a whole episode, but just give a holler, come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Give the update, get the thing, whatever it is, and we'll go from there.
Get a couple of those other guys from our crew on there too. So
we plan to get Paul on. It's we're deciding how to approach that, because I guess he doesn't have a PC, but I think we can do it on his phone. So
you need to just get his daughter to help. She'll get it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, she'll get him on. I think he used her PC for the standard stuff. So I'm sure she'll help him again. Just a reminder, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube or Spotify. Helps us a bunch. We've got some new subscriptions on both, and that's a great thing. And share. Share the damn thing. So the more we get out there, the better the algorithm is. And that old spiel, because you hear it on everything you ever watch on YouTube. So as far as I know, we're not censored in Canada. So, we'll even be on the Canadian YouTube.
Yeah, I've been watching.
Boy, I keep a lot of opinions to myself when I'm talking to foreigners.
Stop it.
Anyway, Troy, it's been a blast. It's good seeing you personally last weekend, even though it wasn't for a whole long time. Good seeing that, and I'm sure we run across each other a few times this fall. So that's a good thing. Thanks, Troy. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care, buddy.